Hi, my name is Jacob Phillip, and today I'm going to talk about reproductive cloning, and I'm on the supporting side.
Hi, my name is Tua, and I am against reproductive cloning. Hey, Jacob.
Hey Tua,
How you doing?
I'm doing fine. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Reproductive cloning is a man-made genetic process in which some of the genetic material from the donor cell is removed and then implanted into a surrogate cell. After the nuclear transfer is done, the offspring produced has its genetic material identical to the donor, and its physical features is also identical to the donor.
Resolution to reproductive cloning. Reproductive cloning is a new scientific phenomenon that will benefit humans in different ways. So Tua, let me start off with my first point. Reproductive cloning is one of the more advanced types of scientific process in genetic research. Reproductive cloning has a lot to offer and can benefit our society in many ways. One very good use of this is to use it to grant couples who are unable to give birth to children. These couples include sterile couples and homosexual couples. Even though fertilization is available to them through vitro fertilization, it isn't the same. Vitro fertilization is a process in which an egg and a sperm are fertilized in a laboratory. But after 2 or 3 days, the zygote is transferred to the mother's uterus. This process has a success rate of merely 10%. That is very low considering the number of couples who are unable to have children. Couples who have only one sterile partner has sperm donation available to them. This means their child has a haploid number of chromosomes from themselves and another haploid number of chromosomes from a random person. Personally, I think that this is weird. Just knowing my son or daughter has someone else's genes would make me very uncomfortable. If you were in this situation, would you want your child that only resembles you 50% or 100%? Reproductive cloning allows this. If these couples have a child through reproductive cloning, there won't be any room for doubtfulness or awkwardness, but only affection and love. Another possible use of reproductive cloning is to have them as your insurance policy. So let me elaborate on that. Let me use myself for an example. I can have a clone of myself and use it to spare my organs and body parts in case I need it in future events. This is a very good alternative in case you just do not die, ready to die. Also, this is a very good way to help boost economy. If a couple's child has passed away, reproductive cloning will be able to replace the loss of the child to the couple with a clone that will make the couple to be happy again. Many couples can prefer to freeze their sperms or eggs to have them reimplanted to have children later. Also, if one of them dies, the other partner can still have children using the frozen sperms or eggs that can be implanted in a surrogate cell. It is not only human that would be benefited by reproductive cloning, but animal life can also be benefited as endangered species can be preserved from extinction through reproductive cloning methods.
Oh, that's the funniest thing I've heard all day. Allowing humans to reproduce asexually is no solution, but only raises many ethical concerns. A clone is an exact copy of a pre-existing organism in terms of physical features and genetic information. This questions the clone's identity. A child that was given birth through reproductive cloning would always be questioned. The child will wonder why it looks identical to his or her parent. The child will have expectations that follow upon the person that they were cloned from and criticized if not fulfilled these expectations. People around this child would also question its existence as it gets older. This also questions the child's individuality. Every human being on earth is distinct and special in their own way. A cloned child won't have that distinguishable factor that will help it become an individual. This can result in the child being treated different by people around it, making it feel like it's not even a person. This can possibly lead to problems mentally for the child in the future. Another thing is that violates human dignity. Sexual procreation is considered to be natural and more dignified than any other way, including in vitro fertilization. Let's put all the science aside and think of this morally. An exact copy of another pre-existing person is definitely wrong. Just thinking about it scares me. Jacob mentions it's a good way to grant certain couples with children, but there are other possibilities. to consider having children, such as adoption. Adopting a child not only fulfills the couple's need to have a child, but also gives a poor, lonely child a lovable home. Jacob brings up an interesting topic of using clones as lifesavers, but Jacob, you really, we're not living in a sci-fi movie. You can't just cheat death like that. Think about the outcome that was, if this was possible. It would eventually lead to overpopulation, which leads to running out of resources, which eventually will lead to extinction. Jacob, is your intentions based on helping humanity or to wipe it out as a whole?
I completely disagree with you, Tua, that cloning defies human dignity. There's no reasons to believe that reproductive cloning affects human dignity. It only contributes to how humans have taken science to such a great level. And it doesn't relate to human dignity at all. Humans have also, Tua also mentions adopting is a good alternative. And don't get me wrong, that is a good alternative. But what if the couple wanted the child of their own blood? When you adopt a child, you'll always feel like the child is not yours. Whereas if you have a child through reproductive cloning, you know that it has the same genetic makeup as you and would make you much happier. You also mentioned that a clone child's individuality would be questioned, but he is not thinking about this sensibly. No one is born with that certain aspect that makes them special. Everyone develops it as they get older and older. Just like that, a clone child will also develop a certain special aspect that as they grow older and older like any other normal child. According to you, Tua, is what I mentioned earlier won't cause overpopulation because it will only be accessible to small portion due to the high cost of it. Even if even if using this process to have a child, it wouldn't be overused because of the high cost of it. We have been talking about one aspect of reproductive cloning for far too long. Now let's move to another possible use for it. Reproductive cloning can be used for de-extinction purposes in animals. And many animals such as Caribbean monk seal and quagga and the Javan tiger were extinct due to human activities. These listed animals were some of the several different animals that were extinct due to human activities. I think it is the time for us to take our responsibility actions, and here's a good way of that. This process will help boost research and scientific development in the field of reproductive methods.
Jacob, you're saying a couple who inherits a child through this process would be happier, but have you looked at the long-term effects? Clones usually are expected to have a shorter lifespan due to different health issues that they encounter from cloning. The rate of failure and deaths is just not worth performing this process. Let's look at Dolly for example. Everyone knows Dolly, right? Dolly was a cloned sheep who was the only survivor of 277 embryos cloned during that experiment. With these failure rates, it would be insensible to even think about trying this on humans. A Japanese scientist, Dr. Atuso Agoro, and his team cloned 12 male mice, only to find 83% of them dead in the next 2 years. What if these parents come across a problem like this and have to let their clone child go? Using reproductive cloning for conceiving purposes might seem like a big problem solver in the short run, but in the long run, it could possibly bring greater pain. Another thing is industrializing children and humans is very inhumane and shouldn't even be a thought. By putting a high price like that, that's exactly what would happen. So the only way to avoid this kind of industrialization is to not offer this process to begin with. As Jacob mentioned, reproductive cloning can be used for de-extinction purposes. Even for this purpose, there are two different aspects. If you're trying to bring back an extinct animal like the woolly mammoth, which was extinct for about 4,000 years, is really not a good idea. The difference in the environment from that time will eventually make a woolly mammoth go extinct again. So really, there's no point in that. On the other hand, if you're just resurrecting a species that was extinct recently, like the eastern cougar, which was declared extinct in 2011, then that would be of everyone's best interest.
Finally, I can just say that there's something we both agree on. Clearly, this debate hasn't been compromised yet. But we hope that we enlighten our viewers with some viewpoints on this futuristic technology that may or may not be allowed in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.